Hey, so without further ado, hello and welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. My name is Emily Seidel. I work with Blue Hill Heritage Trust and I am their Stewardship and Outreach Associate. Uh, Hosting here today, we have Noelle Ruth from Island Heritage Trust down on Deer Isle. And then presenting, we have Aislinn Sarnacki. A little bit about Aislinn. So she is a registered Maine guide, outdoor journalist, and the author of three hiking guidebooks that focus on family hiking, general hiking, and hiking with dogs too. So that's super exciting if you have any pets or children. That's all of her books. Um, she's also written for the local newspaper, for the Bangor Daily News, and for the Bangor Metro magazine. And she actually hosts a new outdoor television show on Maine Public Television. So without further ado, I'm going to let Noelle go over some housekeeping stuff, and then Aislinn will be able to take it away. And thank you again for everybody for being here, and thank you, Aislinn, for your time and presenting to us today.
Wonderful. Yeah, so excited to hear what you have to offer us as far as spring hiking. The only thing I can think of is like wear waterproof shoes because it's so muddy. So I'm excited to learn from you and have my horizons expanded. So throughout the presentation, if any questions or curiosities come up for Aislinn, feel free to submit them through the Q&A box that you will see on the bottom of your screen. And then at the end of the presentation, we will read through those and have a chance to, yeah, have your questions answered.
Awesome. Did you have anything else? You're good.
All good. Take it away.
Okay, cool.
Got it.
Well, thank you everybody for coming. So this is a time of year that a lot of people get really excited about getting back into hiking, especially if they don't do it during the winter time. But it can also be kind of a drab time of year and a little challenging and frustrating to get out there on the trails. Um, And so I wanted to, first of all, start this presentation by getting you excited. Like, what are some of the things that you can see while hiking this time of year? And then moving forward in the next few weeks or the next month or so, what are some things to keep an eye out for here in Maine? So I do have a presentation, so you're not just staring at my face the whole time. I'm going to share my screen. All right. Guess it can be Google Chrome. Yeah. Let's see if this works. Sure. Oh, I might have to come back actually. So hold on one second.
Aislinn, let me know if you need any support.
Okay, I am back. So it needed me to relaunch it to share. I don't know why. Let's see.
Awesome. It
Okay,
worked.
it's perfect. Perfect, perfect.
Yep, you're good, I think. Yep, perfect. There you
Okay, great. So yes, I have a presentation so that we can look at some beautiful pictures together as well. So just to get you excited about spring hiking, to start out, what is happening in nature in the spring? So we've got a few things going on. It is one of my favorite times to, it's like funny because someone asked me the other day, what's your favorite time of year? And I don't have one, but there are certain times that I really enjoy for certain things. So for spring, it's the perfect time to view nature. A lot of things are happening. Nature is very busy. Um, and so when you're hiking, we've got wildflowers in the woods. We've got amphibian movement happening where they're moving to places to lay eggs and things like that. We have reptiles sunning, warming up this time of year. So they're really easy to spot because they're trying to get warm in the sun. We have birds migrating in that we haven't seen all winter. And then, of course, we have bugs, the good and the bad. So, and obviously that's subjective to us humans, but and throughout this presentation, I have labeled the pictures so that if you're interested in what you're looking at, like this here is a trout lily. It's a very common spring flower, and it's a woodland flower, and it's called trout lily because the leaves of the flower are molted, kind of like a trout. So yeah. So I want to start with spring wildflowers because this is like my favorite thing to look for when hiking this time of year. And they're not quite out yet, but in a few weeks we're going to start seeing some popping up, especially the early ones. So one of my favorite early ones that we see throughout Maine is starflower. And this flower is shown right here, but it's interesting in that it can have a variety of number of petals. It's not always consistent, and it's also really sparkly in the sun. If you could get close to it, it looks like sparkling snow. So it's almost like an echo of what we've just had. Um, of course, I think a lot of people know trilliums. Um, and we've got the red trillium, which is the more common one we see everywhere, but we also have the painted. We have a variety in Maine, but these are the most common right here. They're also called, what is it, Stinking Benjamin? There's so many common names, and they kind of smell bad, interestingly. And a number of spring flowers actually don't smell good. Um, Another weird fact in Maine. We've got Redora, which comes out really early before a lot of the leaves even come out, before the leaves on the plant even come out. We've got this splash of color along a lot in the Maine coast area. Um, we've got, sometimes people get mad at me for mentioning this one, but coltsfoot, which is not native to Maine at all. It came over from Europe, I believe, and it's invasive, so it really bothers a lot of gardeners. But to me, it's always been a very early sign of spring. You can see it growing along the ditches of roads. It likes disturbed soil, so this is one of the first flowers you're going to see at all. It's super hardy, so it will pop up. And then later in the year, it's got these big, like leaves that looks like a colt's foot or like a horse's foot. And then as we get later into the spring season, we're going to get those iconic lady slippers that everybody loves. And now I think would be an opportunity to say to you guys that spring wildflower walks are really popular. So your local land trusts often will give spring wildflower walks, and usually it's around lady slipper season, which isn't until like early June, but you might have some giving walks earlier showing you different flowers. But one thing about spring wildflowers is, and why I'm really spending a lot of time on it, is if you blink, you're going to miss it. There have been times that I've traveled during a certain time in spring and I've missed the blooming of a bunch of different flowers that I love and I've been really bummed out. They come and go really fast, so you have to get out there. Each week you're going to see something new pop up. And if you really get into it, you start to see really teeny ones like golden thread, the really little yellow flowers. And I have a couple books here. I did want to mention some books throughout the presentation. And at the end, I do have a list, so you don't have to jot it down just yet. But I'm big into books. This is my office library. And I really like this naturalist book of wildflowers. And you can see a lady slipper on it right here. And it's got just beautiful illustrations. So I collect things like this to learn each flower one by one. I also have Wildflowers of Maine, which is a really cool book. It's more really about the illustrations, but it tells you where you can find it in the state. And this is by Kate Furbish. So that's a super fun. I love local books like that. Super local field guides. So, and it's funny because these look really flashy here on the screen, like they would pop right out. But if you're not looking for wildflowers in the woods, they're so easy to miss. I've walked right by a big cluster like this and not seen them because I was in my head not looking for it. So that's another thing to think about with spring hiking is to kind of slow down and look. And things are gonna start popping out at you once you do that. Here's a one that is really good at flying under the radar. This is called Jack in the Pulpit, and it's a beautiful stripy flower. It grows along all over the place. One place that I see it grow everywhere is Moose Point State Park. There's a wooded section of that park that they're absolutely everywhere. But again, they're very easy to walk by, especially because they have these big green leaves that grow actually above the flower a lot of the time. But this is a pretty early spring flower, and I get them right beside my road. Same patch grows every single year, and I look for it and hope nobody runs it over. And it's just a really, really nice flower. One thing to keep in mind when looking at these plants, though, is that if they do, they can irritate the skin. So if you're touching them, they could irritate you. It doesn't irritate my skin. I know that because I touched them without knowing that first, and it didn't do anything. But yeah, they're really cool native flower to me. Another thing that you don't think of often as flowers, the first flowers that come out are tree flowers, also known as catkins. This can be a fun thing to do when you're hiking is, if it seems drab outside and you're just kind of like, everything's still kind of mucky and muddy, to look for these tree flowers. And sometimes you just have to look up. And so these are often missed because we just don't tend to look up to see flowers, but a lot of trees in Maine get these beautiful flowers in the springtime. So, and then we have later on, a lot of our berries have these beautiful bell-shaped flowers. And so, of like the low bush blueberries that are iconic on Maine mountains. Those will have flowers later on into June and things like that. But then these red ones here are actually huckleberry flowers. And you'll see that a lot on Maine mountains too. We get caught up with our blueberries because they're so awesome, but tons of huckleberry bushes, which are taller and have redder flowers. So something to keep an eye out for. And then we have early on our ferns and fiddleheads. So sometimes I go out on hikes and just look for wonky, cool looking ferns to photograph. I've done that a number of times. It's fun because we have so many species of ferns, and I know I sound like a dork here, but I feel like I'm in good company. We have so many different species of ferns in Maine, and they all look different. Like some are hairy, some are peppery or papery when they come out, and they're fun to photograph, they're fun to observe, and just keep in mind that fiddleheads, they're all called fiddleheads as a group, but the fiddleheads you eat are very specific type of fern that you need to learn how to identify. And those come out early spring. So that can be fun, but you really have to know how to identify them. In that they have like a papery covering, they have a groove in their stem, and it's the ostrich fern. So, but we have many other species that will make you sick. So make sure you don't just pick any old fiddlehead. And then one thing I always like to mention to people, and I was looking for these the other day because they do pop out in March, they start, is the skunk cabbage. That's going to be one of our first plants when you're hiking in the spring. You can often find them along the side of Maine trails. They're going to look like this red, weird, swirly plant at first. This is actually the flower, and it pops out of the snow sometimes. It can actually melt snow because it can generate heat. Oddly, there's a reason it's called skunk cabbage. It actually creates this really garbage type stench. It's to attract bugs for pollinators, but interestingly, you can lean right down and you can smell it, and it smells kind of skunky, garbagey. And then later in the year, it starts to look like a cabbage. So we have, the green version, the green picture there is a little bit later in the year, like later May. Some places I've seen this, it's going to be in damp forest, kind of wetlandy type areas, or in like really just puddly, soggy areas of the forest. I've seen it beside the Wonderland Trail in Acadia National Park. I believe I've seen it in Shore Acres Preserve, on Deer Isle. And I've also seen it, there's all over the place if you go to the Orno Bog Boardwalk. So the beginning of the boardwalk in the forest, they're lining the entire boardwalk, and so that can be really fun. Although that's not open until usually May 1st, so something to keep in mind. All right, so this is may not seem hiking related, but we'll get there. But one thing that I want to make sure you guys know happens in spring in Maine is amphibian movement. And they're moving all the time in the spring, but there's what's called Maine's Big Night, and that's when the conditions are finally just right, and amphibians move like en masse across the landscape to find pools to breed and lay eggs. And so we've got salamanders and frogs moving. They often cross roadways during this time, so there's actually a volunteer effort that you can join to help move them across roadways near wetlands so that they don't get smushed. But it's interesting. The night it has to be nighttime, it has to be above 40 degrees typically because they're cold-blooded, so they need to be able to move. And it needs to be raining to keep them nice and wet. And the timing is usually the first week of April, but it depends if those conditions are met or not. And it can be multiple nights. It doesn't have to be just one night. But you can go out and check it out. And I'm sure you've seen it before, even if you haven't searched for it, seen frogs crossing the road at nighttime. Now, the reason I bring this up, and we've got some examples from last year. I go out and check it out on my road. There's a spot on my road that there's just a mass movement. In Maine, we have 9 types of frogs. We also have 9 types of snakes, oddly. And I don't know how many types of salamanders we have. Quite a few. It'd be funny if it was 9, but I don't know. But the spotted salamander is typically the king of the night. Everybody loves to see the spotted salamander moving because it's our biggest salamander and it's got bright yellow spots on it. And the reason I bring this up in a hiking seminar is because I suppose you could go night hiking and see this. But also, the result are these masses of eggs. So we've got salamander eggs and frog eggs in pools all throughout the woods beside the trails. And so that's something fun to look out for when you're hiking. And if you get really into it, you can try to distinguish the difference between salamander and frog eggs. And it's just an extra layer of kind of jelly around the salamander eggs. And if you get really into it and you're brave, you can shove your camera into the water like I did here, my phone, and get pictures of frog eggs. We've also got the sunning reptiles. So this is just a picture of a massive snapping turtle that I saw at Caribou Bog Conservation Area in Orono, one of my favorite places to go in the spring. And surrounded by little fish and just looking up at me. But they're easier to find in the spring. There's less foliage to kind of keep them hidden. They're coming out to enjoy the sun. So it's just a great time to see reptiles in Maine. I did not include a picture of a snake. I considered it, but I know not everybody loves the snake, but you'll see them out sunning a lot as well. All right, so the obvious is when you're hiking, the birds are back in town. So Maine is home to, gosh, I'm sure somebody else knows, but I think 360 species, quite a few species of birds. But they're not all around in the winter. A lot of them leave to go south, and they're coming back now, bit by bit. Different species come back at different times. So, some of our warblers might take a little bit of time getting back here. These are just pictures I took from last year. The warblers are fun. So if you're into birding, maybe this is your year to learn all your warblers, which is tough because a lot of them look very similar. The one on the far right is a hermit thrush, my favorite singer of the spring, has the most beautiful sound. Um, but right now, we don't have a lot of them back yet, but we do have the turkey vulture. I saw a turkey vulture, my first one probably a week ago, and they are coming back from down south. And you'll notice them wheeling around in the sky. They're about as big as a bald eagle, so people mix them up. Um, but you'll see them a lot hiking, especially if you're hiking mountains or places with cliffs, because they actually roost on cliffs and they put their it's fun. I would say they nest on cliffs, but I have learned that they don't actually create nests. They just lay their egg straight on the rock, and that's their house. That they don't do much besides that. They just leave it there and take care of it, but they don't really create like a nest. Um, they're goofy birds. I love them. They're like ugly cute. And I could talk forever about that, but this is not a turkey vulture presentation. But if you see them up in the sky, differentiating them from a bald eagle, which is about the same size, they have more of a V when they're flying, and bald eagle is more straight across. So that's one way to tell the difference. They also always look scraggly. This one looks remarkably not scraggly, but a lot of times they look scraggly when they're flying. So another thing that you're going to see a lot in the spring, early spring right now, woodpeckers acting up, being just loud, and that's because it's their mating season starts like way back in like early March. And they're loud. They're trying to get attention, and they're creating all sorts of racket. So this right here is a pileated woodpecker, our largest. It's about the size of a crow, and he's peeking up over an old log that he's drilling. One of my favorites is a yellow-bellied sapsucker. So this I see all around my house all the time. And while you're hiking through the woods, if you ever see a tree that has lots of uniform holes in it, little holes, little teeny pinprick holes, and it's like in rows, that's from the yellow-bellied sapsucker. So it will drill these little holes. Now, believe it or not, this is a remarkable transition into bugs, because in the spring, the bugs are waking up. I've already seen spiders moving around. I saw some sort of fly the other day that looked mosquito-y. And I saw a couple butterflies actually near when I went to go get the mail. And so they're waking up. There was a moth outside my window the other night. And interestingly, some of these creatures will overwinter. Some of these butterflies overwinter as butterflies, as adults. So they pop out as adults in the early spring. And mourning cloaks are my favorite. So you can see those right now in March. They're what's pictured here. They're beautiful little butterflies, actually quite large butterflies for our standards. And the way they link with this yellow-bellied sapsucker is this guy leaves holes, and these guys, they emerge before there are any flowers. And so what they're doing is they're getting the sap out of the trees by using those holes to, put their little tongues in. So really cool link. And you'll see that all, obviously all through nature. But so I look for these right now. And there's also a number of other butterflies that overwinter as adults, including some of those orange butterflies I saw the other day, and they have different names, but some of their names are after punctuation, so like comma and period, which is kind of funny. I don't know all my butterflies yet, but this one's very easy to identify. And weird story, I was hiking in the spring, last spring or the spring before, and I was pretty sweaty because it was sunny out, and a mourning cloak butterfly kept coming around and landing on me, and I'd hold my hand out and it would land on me, and then fly around, and then I'd hold my hand out again and it would land on me. And I learned that it was licking the salt from my sweat. So that, if you ever see one, hold your hand out, see if it will come to you. But of course, we also have our pests. So the bugs wake up, and that means the beautiful and the not so great. So we have ticks, black flies, mosquitoes, and then deer fly eventually as well. And I'll get into that a little bit when we talk about gear and preparation for spring hiking, but it's just a reality. So We do deal with that, but not in early spring. Right now is an awesome time to hike because we don't have black flies and mosquitoes and deer fly yet. We do have ticks moving around, so be cautious of that. All right, so we have as well, the tiger beetle is one of the most iconic, I feel like, spring um, insects to emerge, and you'll see it right on a lot of times right on the road or gravel roads, gravel trails. They're really cool in that they're one of the fastest insects out there. So you'll see them sprint um, and and then stop and then sprint again and then stop. It's because they can't even keep up with how fast they are and they have to pause. Um, and then we have a bunch of lichens. So before those spring wildflowers come out, right now is a great time to check out the really bright and beautiful lichen that is going to emerge when the snow melts. And it's going to be really bright and beautiful because moisture to lichen and to mosses brightens it. And so this is a great time to view lichen, photograph it. And again, I don't know all my lichens. A lot of times people call this the British soldier lichen because of the red caps. But there are many cousins, many varieties to that. So that may be inaccurate. All right. So the joys of spring hiking. So we have many joys. Early spring is free of bugs. So it's like the coolest time to get out there, spend a lot of time soaking up the sun, and you're not getting bitten, which I really appreciate. We also have smaller crowds or no crowds. So right now is a great time to visit those places that get overcrowded in the summertime, um, and to experience them without a bunch of people around and not to worry about parking and things like that. Also, like as we've been talking this whole beginning, is watching nature wake up. And then we have longer days for planning longer hikes. So when we're in the fall and winter, it can be kind of challenging because our days are so short, but now we're getting longer and longer days. Obviously, always carry a headlamp with you just in case. You don't want the sun to dictate how long you stay out, but it is much easier to do longer hikes right now. And then we also have more water on our waterways. So things like waterfalls and rivers with rapids are really beautiful right now. So visiting those can be a lot of fun. So the challenges of spring hiking, obvious mud and puddles. I went out yesterday and did become a little frustrated because we've got, the ground is like half frozen, so you can fall through in areas. The puddles are half frozen, and then there's mud, and I always feel bad if I'm tracking through mud and making a mess. And so that can be a challenge. Um, so we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to gear. Black flies and other bugs, obviously a big challenge. Ticks are very active in the spring. I wrote about ticks for the Bangor Daily News for many years and know more about ticks than I would like to know. But they have two really big seasons, and one is spring when they're waking up and moving around initially, and then it gets really hot and dry in the summer for deer ticks, which are the ones that can carry the diseases in Maine that we worry about most. And when things are hot and dry, they calm down a little bit because that is their like kryptonite. They dry out really easily. And then in the fall, when it gets cool and wet again, they are much more active again. So springtime is a big time to really be vigilant about ticks. And it's starting right now. As soon as it's above freezing, they start to move a little bit. And then certainly getting into the 40s and 50s, they're moving around, no problem. And then crazy weather. So spring, we have our spring snowstorms. Then it melts, and then we have a really warm day, and then we have a really cold day. And so that can be challenging when trying to plan what to do, what to wear, where to go. So safety and comfort. That's really what you have to think about when hiking. Like, how can I be the safest I can be, and how can I be comfortable too? And I think we forget that second part sometimes. Like, we are all hung up on safety that we forget the like creature comforts, the little things that could make hiking so much better. So, when it comes to clothing is a big thing for both safety and comfort. Um, we've got all the mud and the puddles, so waterproof boots are pretty much a must in the spring. You don't want your feet to be wet. As soon as your feet are wet and cold, then you're uncomfortable the entire time. And not only waterproof boots, but I mean, right now there's enough snow out there here and there that it can be really slushy, and that slushiness can get right into your boots. So that happened to me yesterday. So that's why I'm thinking about it. So we have gaiters and things like that that can keep the snow out of your boots. And then we have like just taller boots. I could have been wearing taller boots yesterday and I just wasn't. So that's something to always keep in mind. Long pants. So I used to wear shorts all the time as soon as I could. I was like that classic Mainer that as soon as it got like above 50 degrees, I was wearing shorts. But in the springtime, especially because of the ticks and the bugs, wearing long pants, long sleeve shirts, is really more comfortable. So it protects you from the biting flies and the ticks a little bit as well. And if you keep it light colored, you can see the ticks on your pants a lot more easily to get them off. Um, Also, you can treat your pants and other clothing with permethrin if that's okay with you. That's a chemical treatment, but it does keep ticks away. And then to think about wearing synthetic or wool clothing instead of cotton, which is a pretty typical hiking tip, but it does dry faster and it is more comfortable long run. And then I always like to bring something cotton in the car to change into, because cotton is comfortable when you're not sweating. So I like to bring a cotton layer in the car. But um, a baseball hat. I used to never wear hats. And then I got into it when I was hiking and realized that it's very helpful. It shields your face from the sun. I don't like to wear my sunglasses all the time, especially in the woods, where it's shaded anyway. But it also keeps bugs out of my hair, and that is huge. It can be really irritating if you've got feel like you have bugs pinging against your head all the time, and the hat can really help with that. Um, and then sunglasses. Again, it's just a comfort thing. It's like very uncomfortable to squint all of the time. So, and it's something that I forget often. And then for gear, obviously bug repellent when the bugs do get bad. I use an all natural repellent and apply it often because when really I don't want to put a bunch of chemicals on my skin all the time, and I'm always outside. But also when I have snacks, I've gotten DEET and other chemicals on my hands, and then when I'm trying to eat and tasting chemicals doesn't seem right. But on occasion, I will use DEET if it's terrible out. So that's a personal preference. And then, but again, I find that clothing is the best defense against biting flies. Just wearing clothing over most of your skin helps. And then sunscreen, don't forget that. And then there's a full list to check out on AMC's website. I always steer people to outdoors.com, AMC's website, because they have a really good backpack list that tells you some gear you might want to put in your backpack for different seasons and everything. So, and it would take us forever to go through all the gear that you could potentially pack in your hiking pack. But I noticed that people often don't know the three necessities. So it's a multi-tool, compass, and fire starter are the three survival necessities. But there's lots more, like a trail map and obviously snacks and water and things like that. Another thing I didn't list here for comfort is make sure you pack snacks that you really like. You don't have to pack Cliff Bars or typical hiking snacks. You can make a nice picnic. You can make a real snack. You can make it's nothing better than like an actual homemade sandwich when you're out on the trail. Something you're excited to sit down and eat. And it doesn't have to be much because most things taste better outside. So even like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich can taste really good and certainly a lot better than like a granola bar. So taking time to do that. And the same thing goes with water. Yeah, I pack regular water, but it's fun to have something different like apple cider or lemonade or something like that. It just tastes extra good outside. So I do suggest doing that as well and treating yourself on the trail. So in the spring, where do I go? Anywhere. Honestly, you can't go wrong. But there are some things that I do consider when I'm deciding where I'm going to go. First of all, to find trails, there's so many different ways, and I like to give people some ideas of ways they can find trails. So there are hiking guidebooks. There's Maine Trail Finder online that's very useful. All Trails is useful. The Maine Land Trust Network, and they can lead you to all the different land trusts in your area. Um, and then it's interesting because there's so many different landowners in the state, so it can be challenging to figure out just how do I search for different trails. Um, but you got to remember there are state parks, so there's Maine.gov that has all of those. There's Acadia National Park, which is national. Baxter State Park is a state park, but it's not in the state park system. It's governed differently, so that has its own website. Um, and there's other landowners like AMC and the Nature Conservancy and Maine Audubon and even like the New England Wildflower Society and just lots of different landowners that open up their land and their trails to people. So um, there's so many different opportunities, and even your local town or where you live might have trails. So just search, and I don't think you're going to run out of anything anytime soon. I haven't. I've been hiking nonstop in Maine for years, and I still have so many trails I haven't seen. But what kind of trails are the best for spring? I say waterfalls. They're going to be cranking in the spring, just because of all the runoff, all the snow melting. And I do tend to go for rocky coastal trails that are less muddy, usually. And also, they tend to lose their snow faster and become spring faster than inland. And on buggy days later in the spring, I do go for open areas. So along the coast or areas where there's like meadows, in hopes of wind, because wind can really make a huge difference on buggy days. So I hit the coast a lot in the spring. Um, and also, you'll notice if you're hiking a mountain, the bugs will be bad in the forest, but as you get up above tree line, they kind of go away. And then you get the weird bugs on the summit that are, they don't bite, but they're just these weird alien bugs sometimes. But I also like to go to places with nesting boxes. Just fields that have nest boxes. A lot of land trusts do this. Maine Audubon has a lot of properties with nest boxes. And this is a great opportunity to see birds, like bluebirds and tree swallows. And then, I, like I said before, popular trails. So if there is a popular trail like Tumble Down Mountain or Cadillac that you want to do this year, and you want to avoid the crowds, now is a good time to do it, or the next couple of months. Tourist season has been kind of getting earlier and later, which it's great, but right now there's not a lot of tourists around, I would say. And then keep in mind that snow and ice stays in the high mountains for a while. So where was the picture? Right there. Okay, so this picture back here is a friend of mine hiking up on Whitecap Mountain, and this was in late May, I think. So the snow sticks around, and like on Catan, they don't open some of the trails till June. So um, keep that in mind and be prepared for that. So on a lot of the coastal mountains, that's not a problem. They will lose their snow pretty early. It's also interesting. It depends on the face of the mountain. So the south face is going to melt faster. It gets more sun. So keeping that in mind. And that's also maybe something to keep in mind when you're planning your trips in general. If you really want to have a nice sunny day and feel nice and warm, then pick a south trail. So I went kind of fast, but I'm going to open it up to questions, and then I can chat a little bit about anything anyone has for questions. I guess it's not too quick. 4:41, that's pretty good. So I don't know if I can see. Let me get out of this. Stop share. Yeah.
people should be able to type their questions in the chat, or we have like the question and answer feature, so feel free to type
Oh,
things on there too.
I see. Are you considering a book on solo hiking? I see one on Q&A. So Mary asked, am I considering a book on solo hiking? That's a good question. I'm working on another book right now, and it's not a guidebook, but it is a book about hiking and mental health, and it's very much a narrative. It's a personal story. So in a way, that's a little bit about solo hiking. I certainly talk about it a lot in that book, but I don't have a guidebook specifically for solo hiking. So yeah, I'm working on some narrative stuff right now. Some things that are, I love the guidebook writing process. Obviously, it's tons of fun because you go out and you adventure and take pictures and create maps. But right now, I'm taking a break from that and trying to get some other type of writing in. So yeah. So Audrey says, what trails in particular do you recommend in the spring? Well, it depends on the area of the state. I like so many trails. So many. One that I like, I do like south-facing trails. I like to go to Acadia in the spring because it gets so busy later on. So I love like the South Ridge Trail of Cadillac Mountain. And I love going up Sargent Mountain any time of year, but in the spring is great as well. But really, a lot of the coastal trails, like one of the things I really love to do in the spring is go way down east and go to like Bog Brook Cove Preserve and some of those like northeast trails along the coast, there are so many of them. Those are some of my favorite in the spring. They're not particularly muddy either because they're so rocky. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I really, really love in the early spring. I mean, honestly, and I'm not saying this because of this seminar, but I do like to spend a lot of time in the Blue Hill area and Deer Isle, because it is all coastal and it's a lot of rocky land, and it's really beautiful year round because there's so much evergreen and moss. A lot of them, when the snow melts away and we don't quite have our, flowers out yet, but we're really looking for green, those coastal spruce, was it spruce fir fog forests? They are
Yeah,
so
coastal
green
spruce
and
forest.
lush. Yeah, they're so beautiful, and so it's great to get some green in this time of year. And it does become spring in those coastal areas first, I think. We start to see things pop up like the skunk cabbage and stuff really early on in those areas. So yeah. So check out your local land trust website for all the cool trail maps. Okay, so could you share some of your favorite trails in Maine? So I have so many. It depends on the type, the difficulty level too. But I can just name a few for fun. Let's see. Along the Appalachian Trail, I mean, there's a reason why certain things are so popular, because they're really good. So we've got like Gulf Haggis is really cool, especially you have to cross a river in the beginning, the stream in the beginning, on that one. So early spring is probably not the best time for Gulf Haggis, because it would be high and rushing. But the waterfalls would look really cool. So, but that's a great hike with tons of waterfalls. Um, some of my favorite trails, let's see. I'd mentioned Sargent Mountain. That's one of my favorite hikes in Acadia because it's so open and it's just there's nothing like it in Acadia aside from that. There's so much open alpine terrain there. Um, but honestly, yeah, I've got some favorite, I love Peters Brook Trail for this time of year in Blue Hill. That's one of my favorites with the waterfall there and the stream. Um, and like many people, I like I always say I say it wrong, Bard Island, not Bar Island, off of the Deer Isles. So yeah, there's just so many. It's hard to pick. And for mountains, I mean, I've always said Mount Abraham is one of my favorite mountains. That's on the Appalachian Trail. Pleasant Pond Mountain is one of my favorites on the Appalachian Trail. That's out in Caratunk. they're really scattered all over the place. So that's the good thing is you can go anywhere in Maine and find like this absolutely beautiful trail and beautiful for different reasons. So yeah. So Allison said, great advice, so inspiring. Thank you, Allison. Uh, can you remind us about your main TV series? Sure. So this I can give you the inside scoop. So Maine Public Television and Maine Public in general. I'm the host of their, I would call it new outdoor TV show. It started a couple years ago with the first season. It's called Borealis, like the Northern Lights. And it's all outdoor stories. So wildlife conservation, outdoor sports. It's a magazine style show. So there's multiple stories per episode. And I'm the host, but I also am a reporter on a lot of the stories and a writer of the scripts and stuff. So I get to do it all. I get to do voiceover, all that stuff. And I learned a lot while putting together the first season of that show with our amazing team. And then there was a little bit of a pause between, and now season two is coming out in, let's see, on April 3rd, Thursday, April 3rd at 8:30 on Maine Public, and then the following Thursdays. So we're gonna have season two, and then we're hopefully gonna do season three. So pretty exciting. Um, this is more of an observation question. Okay. All right, the woodcock are back. Okay, and I highly encourage folks to get out at dusk and watch the males working hard to attract mates with their aerial flights. The fields at the base of Blue Hill Mountain never disappoint. Thank you, Kate. That is an awesome observation. And I love things like that where people can give like these insider tips, because otherwise you just don't know. But now I'm gonna go over to Blue Hill Mountain to see this because I always wondered where you could see it. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, the woodcock are these derpy birds. They're very goofy. They're the ones you see on, sometimes you might see videos of them walking and like strutting and doing this like weird walk. And they also do these crazy flights to attract a mate. And they'll fly way up in the sky and they'll spin around and make all sorts of noise. So, yeah, I have only witnessed it a couple of times. It's at dusk, typically, and they like fields. So that's cool that they're doing it right now. I did not know what happened this early. So awesome. And does anybody else have any questions? Usually there's a question about ticks.
We
So
did a whole webinar on ticks recently, and I'm like ticking
okay.
out for a while. It was actually it was
Cool.
really informative. And if anyone has questions about ticks, I'm not
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
don't ask. But yeah,
Yeah.
wow. It was just gnarly to like hear all the details and like see them like combing the fields, however they did it for the ticks,
Mhm.
and just, I felt like I need to take like 10 showers after.
Yeah.
Oh, you got another
Yeah.
recommendation
Ooh.
here.
Okay, so Mary has said that for lady slippers, another great tip. So for those looking for them, the Becton Trail on Blue Hill Mountain. So yeah, and that's a nice trail too. That's a nice little hike. 100 Acre Woods in Brooklyn. I haven't done that in years. I want to go back there soon. That's on my list to go back because that's got a wheelchair accessible trail now, right? It's wheelchair accessible or
Yeah,
it's restricted
there's
only.
a wheelchair accessible trail, so it's a half-mile loop, and then the um, like more rugged trail is like a bigger loop around that then. So
That's
yeah.
awesome. And I haven't been there since that was created. Just did the other trail and it was years ago. And then Cannon Brook Trail in Acadia. Those are great tips because yeah, layer slippers, so lady slippers are interesting. They need a very specific environment to grow. And they had this symbiotic relationship with some sort of fungus in the soil. So they only grow in certain areas. And that's also why you don't see people, I don't think you're allowed to anyway, but you don't see people like harvesting them and putting them in their gardens or anything like that because if they did, they would just die. So layer slippers are super cool. They're also, um, oddly, they have this thing where if you look really closely at lady slippers in the springtime, sometimes they will have a hole in their petal, like you'll notice a little hole. And that's because they have this kind of maze inside of them. And so when a pollinator goes in to pollinate and find nectar, they can't get out and they get frustrated and they chew out of the side of the lady slippers sometimes. So that's kind of a funny little thing that you can find. But also, for a tip for lady slippers, from me, this is my personal secret to anyone who uh, watches this. I really like the Branch Lake Public Forest in Ellsworth. It's full of lady slippers. So that's another great place to go. And I've also heard, um, oh, I forget the name of the trail. It's in Bangor. It's by the Bangor City Forest as well. So, all right. So Maureen said some very nice things about my column in the Bangor Daily News, which I do. So my column I write every other week. If people are interested, it comes out in the outdoors section, um, and the weekend typically. And uh, it said that a rough grouse ran past my car in Scudic in Acadia Saturday, and I hope to see more grouse as the season warms. Yes. So in Maine, we have rough grouse. We also have spruce grouse. Rough grouse are more common and people can hunt them. Spruce grouse are less common and people cannot hunt them. They look very similar, but spruce grouse are a little bit fancier with the red on their face. And spruce grouse can actually be found in Acadia as well on Scudic Peninsula. And they're so easy. They're so, I don't know their personality or whatever, but they allow you to get really close to them. Maybe because you can't hunt them and they're not afraid of us. But so you can see those on the Scudic Peninsula as well. Um, Bernie says that Moxie Falls and Angel Falls are long drives from the Bangor area, but both well worth the trip. Agreed. I agree. Angel is maybe, I think it's tied with another falls for the tallest in Maine. Moxie is actually absolutely beautiful. Yeah, there's so many waterfalls in Maine. I've heard online you can search for a Maine waterfall trail, and there's actually, it's kind of in Western Maine, but it's a drive where you can visit multiple waterfalls. Um, yeah, we have a number of them. And then Mary said that I think is saying go up Sargent and down Penobscot is like a really good hike. I can see that being a really good one. There's also in that area you can if you get really uh ambitious, you can hike 6 summits. It's like a 6 summit loop. And as Sargent, Cedar Swamp, Penobscot, and a couple others that I've done. That's a fun hike to do, but it takes a little while. But it's like 6 summits in like 7 miles. So it's not too crazy. Any other questions? We only have a couple minutes, but oh yes, Kate, good point. Another favorite spring activity is the return of the alewives, and they're okay, so Maine Rivers has created a Maine alewife trail map. I did not know that. What a great tip. Um, and can everybody see the Q&A? Or maybe I should speak it. So it's mainrivers.org and then it's through that website and then it's it's slash project slash alewife migration map with yeah, I'm not doing this well, but I'm sure you can find it through the Maine Rivers website, the Maine alewife trail map. I know a lot of trails do go by streams and rivers where you can see this, but um, and really briefly, alewives are a fish and they come up the rivers and in migration and in huge numbers, thanks to a lot of conservation efforts. And a cool thing about you not only seeing all these fish jumping up the rivers and streams, they also attract a lot of birds because the birds like the fish. So you can see ospreys and eagles um, and gulls and things like that going after the fish. So it is really fun to watch. That's a great tip. Anything else? I think we're going to wrap up. Okay, so I actually, one last time, I did want to share my screen because I forgot this. Um, okay, share. There is more. Okay, so I forgot the books that I mentioned are right here. So, and you guys, the sharing is working. Cool. The Naturalist Notebook by Nathaniel T. Wheelwright and Bern Heinrich. That I actually didn't mention, but I would like to real quick. If you're interested in phenology or like the idea of nature continually doing different things in different seasons, that there's a time for everything. Um, the Naturalist Notebook is really fun. It's a notebook you can fill out your own nature observations, and then there's um, the advice on how to do that. And yeah, it's really good. And then yeah, and Naturally Curious. I forgot to mention the other two wildflower books I did, but Naturally Curious, if you're interested in more of like what can I see in the spring or what can I see in the fall, like at certain different times of year, I found this is a really good book for that. The author is from Vermont. Um, so you have to think of things happening a little bit later in Maine than in Vermont, but a lot of the species and mentioned is they're all similar. There's only a few that you're like, oh, we don't have that snake. But it's the only thing I've been able to find like it that's pretty good for Maine. And that's really fun. Then it goes by month. So you can see what can I see this month type of thing through that book. And then if anybody does want to follow my adventures or contact me, um, the easiest way is go to aislinnsarnacki.com, and then that has all my information, all my social media, everything. Um, I also have a guide company, mainenaturehikes.com, but you can get to that from aislinnsarnacki.com. And you can see me on Borealis and through the Bangor Daily News, my column. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Aislinn. This was a fantastic presentation. It was so good to hear about all of the cool things we can see popping up as we're heading into spring. So thank you so much. And thank you everybody who came and who participated in questions. So I hope you all have a lovely evening. And if you want to share this with somebody or you know someone who wanted to attend but couldn't make it, we will be uploading this video as a video recording to our Blue Hill Heritage Trust YouTube page. So you can watch that and previous Friends from the Fields there where you can learn about ticks as we talked about earlier too. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Aislinn.